Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Friday Business Intelligence Tip of the Week. Today, we're going to have a real short topic, and it's one that I've covered briefly previously, but I continue to get questions related to it. So I want to kind of peel back the onion a little bit and show you a few more items. So today, we're going to talk about adding custom calculations to an Excel pivot table. Now, you might want to do this for a variety of reasons. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on over here to my Excel. I created a pivot table against a multi-dimensional cube that we have related to general ledger data. Now this cube is in SQL Server Analysis Services, and we're using the multi-dimensional format. And I say that because there's two different types of cubes out there. There's multi-dimensional cubes, and then there's tabular cubes. What I'm showing you today is on a multi-dimensional cube. So there's a scenario I want to highlight is perhaps you want to create a variance calculation into this view. So I have my actual amounts here and I have my budget amounts, but maybe I want a third column for a variance that's there. You have a few options to do this. One is I could add it in Excel outside of the pivot table. So I could say something out here where I could do it from outside that using traditional Excel formulas. Two, if it's something that I wanted to use a lot, what I recommend doing is embedding that calculation in the cube itself. So if you're a dashboard gear customer, for instance, you get a customer account rep that will customize your cube for you and add in those calculations. So if you wanted the variance, that's something to use over and over again, you would have your rep put that in and they'd put that in the cube. And then once they do that, it would be available as an amount in the cube, for you, just automatically available for you to use. But let's say it's something you don't use that often or you need it right now. I don't want to have to submit a request to my rep and I want to put that in. You can create calculations that are part of this by going up to the pivot table menu. And if you go to the pivot table analyze menu, one of the sections you're going to see on here is OLAP tools. And if I click on that OLAP tools, you're going to see some items down below here, an MDX calculated measure and an MDX calculated member. Now, if you recall from previous sessions we've done, the difference between a measure and a member. A measure is a number that's in here that you're going to use. So that's like the amount, actual amount, budget amount, variance, anything that's a number. A member is a textual field over here. So maybe you wanted to create a calculated member that was something like total sales, and it was a combination of different accounts to add up to sales. So you can do that. You can create a member or a row or column value based on a combination of those dimension members, and that's called a calculated member. But today we're going to talk about a calculated measure, which is the calculating an item on the amounts. So how we do that is we'll come up here to the OLAP tools and say MDX calculated measure. Now what an MDX calculated measure is a formula wizard that's here, and I can give it whatever value. So let's say I'll call this my variance. You just give it a name, whatever you want to call it. I won't get too fancy here. You can put it in a formula. So maybe I'll call this formula or this folder special calculations. And I can put it under a specific measure group, and a measure group is these folders over here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify the formula here. Now for traditional measure type formulas, they're fairly obvious. It's using a language when you're doing multi-dimensional cubes called MDX, which is multiple dimension expression. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the amount and I'll minus, and I'll just pick my other field, budget amount. So you can get as fancy as you want with this. Now these multi-dimensional expressions can get pretty complex. I'm not going to go through the different combinations that you can do today, other than to just say, if you do want to get something more complex, do a little digging on MDX, and you can say creating MDX calculated measures if you want. or you can just say MDX formats, because there's a lot of different syntax things. It's a little bit strange when you start to say, I want to take fiscal year 21 divided by, internet sales. And so when you're trying to filter things down, it can get a little more complex. Today, I just want to cover a basic measure where I'm taking the amount of something minus the budget. And I can say test here, and it'll give you a little idea if you typed it correctly. Now, in my case, I didn't do anything too fancy, so it's pretty easy. So I'll just say okay. Now, what you'll notice is it added over here into a folder called Special Calculations. Remember, I told it to call it Special Calculations, a value of my variance. And if I go ahead and I put that down here, I can drag that and use that like any other value then that's in here. So now all of a sudden I have my variance formula that's here. So you got that already built in. So it's used in the cubes just like anything else. You can use those in cube formulas, etc. So those of you that are familiar with that functionality, you can do that. So it's just a way of creating a calculation that maybe you're going to use a few times over and over again. So that's can be used across worksheets as well. So if I create this calculation as part of this connection, if I reuse that connection on sheet 2 or sheet 3 or sheet 4, you'll see it's still available to that. It's not used across workbooks. That's where it goes to the point of embedding it in the cube. But anything in this workbook, across sheets or whatever, it will be used as part of that. So hopefully you found today's session helpful. If you ever do need to do a calculated item, actually, I'll show you one more item on that. And that's up here under calculations. If you do want to change it, let's say you made a mistake. If you do manage calculations, it will list all your calculations here and you just do edit and it'll pop it back up. And that's how you can get back to it. So I just wanted to at least give you a little bit of a look on how you'd create one and how you would save one, how you'd edit one, and so forth. So thanks for today's session. And if you do have any additional content items that you're looking to see, please do send us a email at info@dashboardgear.com and we'd be happy to help you out. So until next week, we'll talk to you then.